Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Calhoun, what is it that you get paid currently?
Senator, that's well disclosed in our proxy documents in each of the years that I've been employed.
Yeah, but what is it?
It's a big number, sir.
Well, let me help you out. It's $32.8 million this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
That's a 45% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
What is it you get paid to do exactly?
I get paid to run the Boeing company.
Yeah. So just help me understand that. I mean, do you get paid for transparency? Is that one of the metrics for your income?
I think the board counts on me for transparency.
Really? Because you're under investigation for falsifying 787 inspection records. The Boeing's under criminal investigation for the Alaska Airlines flight. You were investigated by DOJ for criminal conspiracy to defraud the FAA. This is all in your tenure. This doesn't sound like a lot of transparency to me. What about safety? Is that a component of your salary?
It sure is, Senator.
You know, have you seen the reports that the subcontractor that you used to make that door piece that fell out of the sky, that when the FAA went and toured the facility, they found one door seal being lubricated with Dawn liquid dish soap and cleaned with a wet cheesecloth, and another was being checked with a hotel room key card. Does that sound like safety to you?
Senator, I think our relationship with that particular supplier has been well documented, reviewed by the FAA and most certainly us. And I'm very intent on acquiring that company so that none of that ever happens.
You know, the FAA also says that Boeing still has not implemented the recommended steps back from 2019 and 2020 after the MAX crashes. You still have not taken the appropriate safety procedures or implemented what they recommended. I mean, how, if safety is a component of your $33 million compensation package, I mean, how can you possibly qualify for any of this? What about quality? Is quality part of your compensation package?
Senator, I meet with the FAA pretty regularly. They don't hold anything back, and I'm not aware of anything that has been cited with respect to those accidents that we haven't taken action on.
Really? Because we've had whistleblowers. You said you'd listen to whistleblower testimony. We've had multiple whistleblowers come before this committee and allege that Boeing is cutting every possible corner on quality and safety, not just in the past, but now. They've alleged that you've eliminated safety inspections, that there are fewer in quality and there are fewer inspectors doing quality inspections out there. They've alleged that when they raised quality issues and concerns, they were reassigned, they were retaliated against, they were physically threatened. That doesn't sound like attention to quality to me, and yet you're getting paid $33 million a year. It's extraordinary.
Senator, we have increased our quality inspectors significantly.
How much has your stock price increased while you've been at Boeing?
It hasn't, and I don't watch it much.
Have you done any stock buybacks while you've been at Boeing?
Not in my job, no.
How about your profits? Have your profits increased at all while you've
I haven't had any profits, sir.
I'm sorry?
I have not had any profits.
Yeah. You know, I think the truth is, Mr. Calhoun, you're not focused on safety, you're not focused on quality, you're not focused on transparency. All of this is in the record, but I think actually you're focused on exactly what you were hired to do, which is that you're cutting corners, you are eliminating safety procedures, you are sticking it to your employees, you are cutting back jobs because you're trying to squeeze every piece of profit you can out of this country, this company. You're strip mining it. You're strip mining Boeing. It was one of the greatest American companies ever. It has employed thousands of people in my state, and you are strip mining it for profit, shareholder value, and you're being rewarded for it. You got a huge raise, a huge increase. So it's working out great for you. For the American people, they're in danger. For your workers, they're in peril. For your whistleblowers, they literally fear for their lives, but you're getting compensated like never before.
But one of the reasons you do these presentations, I do them, is you're probably on 1,000 televisions around this campus right now. And maybe there's some staffers who all of a sudden are willing to listen to math. Remember our running joke, this is a math-free zone? Second thing, and I'm just going to do this one because I'm tired of people that don't think. Stop being trite. The scale of the debt problem is real. And whether you're on the left or the right, you have to understand the solutions we move our mouths about saying, we can raise taxes on rich people. And you get about 1.5% of GDP, but you're borrowing about 9.6. And those of us who want to cut things, we got to be honest. I can find you 1.5%, 2% of cuts. But if you're borrowing 9.6% of GDP, which we are this year, you're not really moving the needle. So one of the comments, just to understand how absurd and how stupid, excuse me, that's not fair. I take that back. I apologize. Please take this seriously. So when you have the person that says, and maybe it was a bot, and you see in the comments 20, 30 times, you know, if you just got rid of congressional salaries, we're probably overpaid for our work product. In an entire year, every U.S. senator, every member of the House, get rid of their salaries. It would cover 16 minutes of borrowing in an entire year. In a day, it would cover 2.6 seconds of borrowing. But this is what we call it's fun rhetoric and it's stupid math. And when you have someone willing to say things like that, it once again shows you're not willing to understand the scale that's moving against this country. Remember, over and over and over and over, it's debt that has crushed republics. But you see their cover. Their cover is trying to make the point is we have actually a remarkably healthy economy considering all the stupid that's gone on. Yet, what does it mean to you when magazines like this are actually doing covers saying, well, the amazing American economy, it's still growing, and yet at the same time, last week I was here and told you we were borrowing over $95,000 a second. Now it's no longer $95,000. It's $98,000, I think $300 a second. If we try a little harder, maybe we'll get over $100,000 a second. If you go over the last 365 days, as of today, we're borrowing over $98,000 a second. And almost every dime of that growth in borrowing is interest and different types of health care. And yet, when we look at these, I keep trying, sorry, I keep trying to explain over and over and over every dime. So think of this as just, and this is a more update version. So here's what we call discretionary. You see there in the blue or purple, whatever that color is, about half of that's defense. About half of that is everything you think of as government. It's the FBI, it's the Park Service, you know, it's everything else. It's other than mandatory earned benefits. Every dime a member of Congress votes on is borrowed. All defense is borrowed. All discretionary is borrowed. And we're heading towards a time where we may actually see, and this is off, if we actually get close to 2.8 trillion and all discretionary is about 2, start thinking that. When you start having another $800 billion of Medicare, of things of that nature borrowed, shouldn't that actually start to create a little sense of stress, panic? Are we going to continue to play the game around here where the left lies saying, we can raise taxes, and then we do stupid things like, well, if we got rid of foreign aid, yes, it would take care of a whole week or so of borrowing. What I'm asking for is to think with a calculator We have to change policies in a big-time way to save this country. And it's going to be complex. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to read and read and read and understand. But there is hope. I can show you over and over. I've come to this floor and said, if you do these things, you can crash the price of healthcare. If you adopt these technologies, you can crash the price of this government. And yet these hallways around here are full of people that they're not here to help us cut spending. They're here to help us, but actually help themselves. They want money. They want to either defend their bureaucracies or they want to defend their business models, and they use Congress as a barrier to entry.
And that's when I realized that in the Matrix, when Morpheus holds up the battery and he says, we are the energy. And when I first saw the Matrix, I had no idea what he was talking about. I now have a much better idea what Morpheus was saying. What we energy for at this stage is open to interpretation. But what I do know, more than anything I've ever held dear, is that everything we've been taught is a lie.
Don't let them control it. They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies. It's all bullshit. Everything you believe is a lie. Howdy. Is controlled by your belief. Open your mind. Don't let them control you. They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies. It's all bullshit.
Sudosi budosi naranjanasi samsara maya pariyajitesi samsara svavanam jajamohad nidram najanma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi samsara maya pariyajitesi samsara svavanam jajamohad nidram najanma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi samsara maya pariyajitesi samsara svavanam jajamohad nidram najanma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsari swapanam jajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsara svapanam trajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsara svapanam jajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsara svapanam jajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsara swapanam jajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitesi Samsara svapanam jajamohanidram Na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi samsara maya pariyajitisi samsara swapanam jaja moha nidram na janma mrityor trisat swarupi.
More than anything I've ever held dear is that everything we've been taught is a lie. When I first came across this statement some 30 years ago, I thought, what an arrogant prick. Who wrote that? Really? How can you say that? I'm a smart guy. I've got a degree. I came out of university. I know what they taught me. I know a lot of stuff. And I was just blind. I was still sucking up all that stuff. Now, I have a pretty clear idea of everything I was told is just deception and confusion, brainwashing. And it seems to me that the bigger the lie, the more we believe it. And that is something that I would like you to really contemplate. Because we're now going to start talking about some lies that some people have a problem with. And it's small lies that we can get over the small lies. Oh, yeah, of course they do this, of course. Oh, no, but this is too big. Oh, too many people are going to have to be in on it. And that's what we constantly try and overcome the big lies by believing that it's impossible for them to pull the wool over our eyes. Because, millions of people would figure this out. Well, they're not figuring it out. And if they are figuring it out, they're just called conspiracy theorists. So, in all these areas, these are the areas that the lies have become so large that it really takes a lot of guts to start admitting it to ourselves. Because until we admit this to ourselves, we remain slaves of those that create these lies and weave these spells and keep us enslaved on every possible level, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, consciously, socially. We're enslaved in every possible way. Michael Ledwith was an advisor to the popes for 17 years at the Vatican, and he uncovered one of the biggest lies. And I still cannot get over the fact that no other biblical scholar that I've come across has exposed this lie or this oversight. And they all should know this, because Michael discovered that the opening phrase of the Bible does not say, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." That is a lie. The Hebrew Bible from which this was translated actually does not begin with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And all biblical scholars and these guys that do these translations know this, and they should know this. So they should have busted this centuries ago, right? And they did not. So either someone is paying them or telling them not to bust this or not to reveal this. And Michael Ledwith discovers this because he realized that in the Hebrew Bible, it starts, opening phrase of the Bible starts with Ba, with the letter B, the second letter of the alphabet. Ba, Rashit, bara Elohim, et ha-shamayim wa et ha-iaras, which is actually a grammatically nonsensical statement. And it refers to Elohim as a plural. And in this statement, it actually means the singular God, because that statement is translated as, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Well, that's not true. So when he inserted the first letter of the alphabet, which it should have, A or Aleph, it now says Abba, which means Father. So it's Abba Rashit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim wa et ha-iaras, which is the Father of the beginnings created the Elohim, the heavens and the earth. And that changes everything. And that brings me to the three holy cows of our education. Humans evolved out of apes. Nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted from one form to another. The theory of evolution remains a theory. There is no real absolute evidence that we evolved out of apes, but that gets shoved down our throats. And if you have not seen Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, please go and see that documentary.
A double helix. You can see the two helical strands that are intertwined and wind around each other on the outside of the molecule. This is the material that stores all of our genetic information. In higher life forms, this will be the equivalent of something like a gigabyte of information stored in the molecules that form the individual chromosomes, all packed within the nucleus, which is a tiny fraction of the entire cell size. So what does DNA do? Well, the information in DNA ends up providing the information for sequencing the amino acids to make protein. We have information in a one-dimensional form that provides the information for a three-dimensional form.
I'm finally just beginning to grasp the complexity of the cell. Are there systems within the cell that go well beyond Darwinian evolution? Some type of cellular technology that drives adaptation, replication, quality control, and repair? What if these new mechanisms have massive design implications? Well, I say, so be it.
The cell really is like nothing we've ever seen in the physical world. That's got to be firmly grasped. That's not something we can just say, oh, well, it's just a little bit more of the same old, same old. It's not the same old, same old.
We are finding is that there's information that's in the cell that cannot be accounted for in terms of these undirected material causes. So
It has to be.
And so there's some other, so it has to be an information source.
So one of the key questions faced by modern biology is, where do you get information from?
Well, Darwin assumed that the increase in information comes from natural selection. But natural selection reduces genetic information, and we know this from all the genetic population studies that we have.
And where does the new genetic information going to come from?
Well, that's the big question.
So when we find information in the DNA molecule, the most likely explanation is that it too had an intelligent source.
I mean, we need engineering principles to understand these systems, okay? I mean, it's only because of our advancements in nanotechnology that we can even begin to appreciate these systems.
But using intelligent design didn't seem to stop the scientists I spoke with, so why all the controversy?
Suppose we find, simply as a matter of fact, that our scientific inquiries point in one direction.
Which is that there's an intelligent creator.
Why should we eliminate that from discussion? Streng verboten? How come? Why?
Streng verboten. Very good. What does streng verboten mean? Strongly forbidden.
Strongly forbidden.
You've got two possible hypotheses. You've got a wall through the middle of through your brain, in effect, through your thinking. You say, well, you can't consider anything on this side of the wall. Only hypotheses on this side of the wall are permissible for consideration.
What about academic freedom? I mean, can't we just talk about this?
Their reply is that science is not a democratic process.
Oh, really?
And that there is a consensus view.
But wait a minute,
we are to subscribe to the
wait a second, but
view.
Darwin challenged the consensus view, and that's how we got Darwinism. If Darwin wanted to challenge the consensus today, how would he do it? Science isn't a hobby for rich aristocrats anymore. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if you want a piece of the pie, you've got to be a good comrade.
Scientific ideas. How we get them to you, the people. Every idea must be inspected to ensure that it is safe. All theories must pass through a series of checkpoints. First, the academy.
Getting a controversial theory through the academy can be dangerous. Few people know this better than Congressman Mark Souder. He uncovered a targeted campaign led by individuals within the Smithsonian and the National Center for Science Education to destroy Dr. Sternberg's credibility.
If you want peer reviews, if you want to be published, if you want to go to respected institutions, the core view does not tolerate dissent. There's kind of a, this is the way it is, and anybody who's a dissenter should be squashed.
Are you gonna be on my side if I let you up?
Sure, Chick, sure. I'm on your side. Just let me up. I'll do anything you say.
Souder isn't the only one who has witnessed the Academy's tactics. Journalist Larry Witham has seen similar behavior during his 25 years of covering the evolution controversy.
Once you're thick in science, you can't question the paradigm. But if you want to get grants, if you want to be elected to high positions, if you want to get awards as a promoter of public education of science, you can't question the paradigm.
People cannot be trusted to form their own opinions. This business about open-mindedness is nonsense.
Why is the scientific establishment so afraid of free speech?
There is this fear that if one aspect of a theory is closely scrutinized, there's going to be an unraveling.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
I interviewed dozens and dozens of scientists, and when they're amongst each other or talking to a journalist who they trust, they'll speak about, it's incredibly complex, or molecular biology is in a crisis. But publicly, they can't say that.
Keeping a keen eye on the Academy, our various watchdog organizations.
Listen to Eugenie Scott of the National Center for Science Education. The NCSE has been at the heart of virtually every evolution controversy over the past 25 years, vigorously defending the Darwinian gospel.
We have had a lot of business, unfortunately, at NCSE in the last few years, because virtually every state in which science education standards has come up for consideration has had a big fight about the coverage of evolution in them. NCSE was started by a group of scientists and teachers who were very concerned because in the late 70s and early 80s, there were a lot of attempts to pass equal time for creation science and evolution laws. And clearly, this is something that neither scientists nor teachers liked. It wasn't exactly help the creationists are coming, but it's, kind of along those lines. Most scientists just throw up their hands and say, creationists, they drive me crazy, you handle it. We've worked a lot with science education organizations. The most important group we work with is members of the faith community, because the best kept secret in this controversy is that Catholics and mainstream Protestants are okay on evolution.
Are you sure about that, Eugenie?
Liberal Christians have been fighting with conservative Christians for so long that they'll side with anybody against the fundamentalists. And Eugenie Scott says, well, welcome over.
There's a kind of science defense lobby, or an evolution defense lobby in particular. They are mostly atheists, but they are desperately wanting to be friendly to mainstream, sensible religious people. And the way you do that is to tell them that there's no incompatibility between science and religion.
But is there really an incompatibility? Can't we believe in God and Darwin?
Implicit in most evolutionary theory is that either there's no God or God can't have any role in it. So naturally, as many evolutionists will say, it's the strongest engine for atheism.
If they called me as a witness, and a lawyer said, Dr. Dawkins, has your belief in evolution, has your study of evolution turned you towards atheism? I would have to say yes. And that's the worst possible thing I could say for winning that court case. So people like me are bad news for the science lobby, the evolution lobby. By the way, I'm being a hell of a lot more frank and honest in this interview than many people in this field would be.
Working hard to keep ideas in check are our friends in the media.
Morning, paper. Paper, mister?
The tendency of the media is to side with the establishment because they inherently agree with the establishment.
Eugenie Scott, my understanding is that there is not a single peer-reviewed article out there that supports intelligent design. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. You are correct.
I believe that we get coverage, but we always get coverage like we're the outsider, not like it's an even debate.
But instead of merely reporting news, he analyzes it, often expressing his personal opinions.
We constantly deal with reporters who refuse even to report the correct definition of intelligent design. They over and over again talk about life is so complex, God must have done it.
Just admit it, it's religion.
Very simple.
You just can't, it's religion.
It's a wanton distortion of our position.
Study desk.
I've got a hot story here.
You can look at Associated Press stories, and the same sentence will appear in those stories for 10 years. Intelligent design says that life is too complex. It's called a boilerplate. And the reporter never reports anymore or gets any new ways to say it, so the public understanding never advances.
But what happens if a reporter decides to take a more balanced approach to intelligent design?
There might be remarkable pressure on that reporter not to side against the evolutionists.
I thought I told you to kill that story.
Few reporters have learned this better than author and journalist Pamela Winnick. When she refused to take sides in an article she wrote about intelligent design, the Darwinists found a new favorite target.
Number one, I wasn't Christian, I was Jewish. Number two, I wasn't religious. Number three, I was not taking a position in favor of creationism. I was writing about intelligent design, and it didn't matter. After I wrote that one piece, everything I wrote on the subject was scrutinized. There were hate letters coming into the newspaper. If you give any credence to it whatsoever, which means just writing about it, you are just finished as a journalist.
Other journalists we spoke with told similar stories, but didn't dare appear on camera.
And now, the presses are ready to roll.
When all other checkpoints fail, there is always the courts.
We have spent an enormous amount of time trying to prove to the court what everybody already knows, that intelligent design is a particular religious belief.
But I thought scientific questions were settled by the evidence, not by taking people to court and suing them. How do other countries deal with such disputes? Dr. Marcy Giertuk, a population geneticist who now represents Poland in the European Parliament, was able to shed some light on this topic.
The censorship of teaching criticism of evolution is and always was much stronger in, say, in your country, in the United States, than it ever was in Poland.
Why? Why would the censorship?
That is because you have a political correctness in your country. These issues are brought to court, and the court says what you can and what you cannot teach.
We want to know what you teach, what books you use, how you teach it.
We never had that sort of way of deciding scientific issues in Poland. We never had the courts involved.
So you are saying that as far as the teaching of science is concerned, Poland is freer academically than the United States?
I think in this particular issue of evolution, I think this is true.
But how effective are the courts in deciding such matters? What about the general idea that intelligent design is doomed as a result of several recent legal setbacks?
I think court cases don't decide anything. I mean, if you look at the Scopes trial, who won that trial? It wasn't the evolutionists. I mean, it was the Tennessee law was upheld, barring evolution. And yet, in the popular imagination, Scopes is the hero. Inherit the Wind, that movie, which is really bogus history based on the Scopes trial, has carried the day. These issues go much deeper than any decision by a judge.
The evolution debate does seem to run much deeper than the courts, much deeper even than science. To generate this level of hostility, ID must threaten something at the very core of the Darwinian establishment.
The entire globe is today the site of a momentous conflict. It is the challenge of ideas.
I am Edward R. Murrow. For a little while, I would like to review with you the great conflict of our times, one which demands and must get the attention and the involvement of each one of us.
This conflict over the principles of evolution has become a religious war. It really is no longer about scientific investigation.
It is total competition with an antagonist who is putting into it everything within his capability.
The situation has reached a point where many of evolution's top apologists have switched from defending Darwinism to attacking religion in what they see as a bid to stamp out intelligent design at the source. Richard Dawkins is the best example of this. His recent book, The God Delusion, has sold over 1 million copies worldwide.
The God Delusion is my long-expected, long-worked-on, full-frontal attack on religion. To me, science is about trying to explain existence, and religion is about trying to explain existence. It's just that religion gets the wrong answer.
But is Dawkins correct? Are science and religion really at war?
For an appraisal of this continuing and protracted conflict, we can go to a reporter who has watched the growing conflict with the perception of a trained military observer.
Oxford professor Alistair McGrath, author of The Dawkins Delusion, seemed like the ideal person to answer my question.
Richard Dawkins has a charming and very, I think, interesting view of the relationship between science and religion. They're at war with each other, and in the end, one's got to win, and it's going to be science. It's a very naive view. It's based on a complete historical misrepresentation of the way science and religion have interacted. Dawkins seems to think that a scientific description is an anti-religious argument. Describing how something happens scientifically somehow explains it away. It doesn't. But the questions of purpose, intentionality, the question why, still remain there on the table.
And I think it was just a catastrophic mistake to have someone like Dawkins address himself to profound issues of theology, the existence of God, the nature of life. He hasn't committed himself to disciplined study in any relevant area of inquiry. He's a crummy philosopher. He doesn't have the rudimentary skills to meticulously assess his own arguments.
Genius guy, though.
Very smart guy. A little bit of a reptile, but a very smart guy.
The opposing point of view in this conflict rests on a fundamentally different vision of man.
If you have two distinguished scientists, and in fact you can range many more on each side, as you know, saying exactly opposite things, that's telling me that the conflict is not between science and belief in God. Otherwise, you'd expect all scientists to be atheists. But it's a worldview conflict. It's between scientists who have different worldviews.
You've got two competing explanations of the evidence. One says design, one says undirected processes. Both of them have larger philosophical or religious or anti-religious implications. So you can't say that one of those two theories is scientific and the other is unscientific simply because they have implications. Both have implications.
People who tell you, for example, that science tells you all you need to know about the world, or that science tells you that religion is all wrong, or science tells you there is no God, those people aren't telling you scientific things. They are saying metaphysical things, and they have to defend their positions for metaphysical reasons.
What is being presented to the public is, first comes the science, and then comes the worldview. I would want to argue that that may not be the case, that it may actually be the other way around, that the worldview comes first and is influencing the interpretation of science.
My deep regret is some people are so deeply entrenched in their own worldviews that they will simply not countenance alternatives.
I'm actually a person of the left. I'm not even a particularly religious person. I think of myself as kind of humanist. And I think it's sending a very bad message to religious people who are interested in science, that in some sense, in order to do science credibly, they have to leave their religious beliefs at the door.
The founders of early modern science, Sir Isaac Newton, Robert Boyle, Johannes Kepler, Galileo, most of these early scientists all not only believed in God, but they thought their belief in God actually made it easier to do science.
You can be religiously motivated and you can do good science. And they have more often gone together than not gone together.
Admitting our biases is the best way towards rational discussion, which I would welcome.
Rational debate is a nice thought, but it's nearly impossible in the current climate. I'd seen the chilling effect that this unquestioning devotion to Darwinism has had on science, but were there other consequences?
No gods, no life after death, no ultimate foundation for ethics, no ultimate meaning in life, and no human free will are all deeply connected to an evolutionary perspective. You're here today and you're gone tomorrow, and that's all there is to it.
Dr. Will Provine, professor of the history of biology at Cornell University, gave us another disturbing glimpse into where Darwinism can lead.
Oh, I was a Christian, but I never heard anything about evolution because it was illegal to teach it in Tennessee.
Dr. Provine's first biology professor changed all that.
He started talking about evolution as if it had no design in it whatsoever. And I came up to him and I said, "You've left out the most important part." And he said, "If you feel the same way at the end of one quarter, I want you to stand up in front of the students in this class and tell them this deep lack in evolution." And I read that book so carefully, and I could find no sign of there being any design whatsoever in evolution. And I immediately began to doubt the existence of a deity. But it starts by giving up an active deity. Then it gives up the hope that there's any life after death. When you give those two up, the rest of it follows fairly easily. You give up the hope that there's an imminent morality. And finally, there's no human free will. If you believe in evolution, you can't hope for there being any free will. There's no hope whatsoever of there being any deep meaning in human life. We live, we die, and we're gone. We're absolutely gone when we die.
Dr. Provine is no stranger to the prospect of death. Nearly a decade ago, he was diagnosed with a large brain tumor.
Let's suppose my tumor comes back, as it almost certainly will. Well, I'm not going to sit around like my older brother did last year, and he was dying of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. He wanted desperately to die, but we couldn't help him die. I don't want to die like that. I'm going to shoot myself in the head long before then. I'm going to do something different.
I hope these are empty words for my friend, Dr. Provine, because shortly after this interview was recorded, he learned his brain tumor had returned.
I don't feel one bit bad about holding the views that I do. There's not anything in the views I hold that makes me, oh, I wish I had free will, or, oh, I wish there were a God. I don't ever wish that.
Dr. Provine's deconversion story was typical amongst the Darwinists we interviewed.
It's quite spectacular what they do to academics around the world just for mentioning the word creation or creative process. It's unbelievable. They destroy their lives. In the Middle Tennessee State University, 2005, a bunch of students propelled sound beyond the speed of light. This was published in the American Institute of Physics and then very, very quickly shelved because this is very dangerous information, especially for the youth. I'll explain to you how sound can travel beyond the speed of light because it's not the way we think about sound traveling in this medium. It's sound, and yet it is slightly, we need to first come to grips about the nature or with the nature of our reality, which I'm going to cover in this. So, and then finally we get told that we cannot create or destroy energy, and then in the next second they tell us we all come from the Big Bang. So, oh wow, that's cool. I thought we can't create or destroy energy, and now we suddenly come from the Big Bang. So you just see how they play, how they lie, and they constantly create these backdoor exits for when they get caught with a lie, and they have a backdoor exit. And in this case, they say, well, you see, that energy wasn't created out of nothing. It actually came from an infinitesimal small little point called the singularity. So they constantly make up these things, like the nucleus of an atom. It's impossible for the nucleus to exist because of the repulsive forces, because we can't figure out how the nucleus of the atom exists. So they come up with a BS thing for it. They say, well, it's the strong force. It's the strong force that holds the nucleus together. Oh, it's a strong force. Of course, that's how it works. So well, we have no idea how it works. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't be there. But it's the strong force that holds it together. So the moment we give it a name, everybody goes, oh, that's great. Well, that's how it works. And that's how they bamboozle us, you see. Theoretical maths and theoretical physics is the black magic of the new millennium. That's what it is. It's a really dangerous tool. And that's how they get away with a lot of this stuff. And that brings me to the space and cosmos, one of the greatest deceptions and one of my most passionate new areas of research is what is space and what is the cosmos? Because it seems to me that one of the greatest secrets that has been kept from us and yet given to us by NASA themselves for the last 3 or 4 decades, they constantly tell us that there's water everywhere in space. But that's not what we perceive, right? If I told you there's water in space everywhere, you'd say, well, you're an idiot. Space is a vacuum. We know space is a vacuum. There's nothing there. And yet that's not the case. And when you start researching space and water, it becomes mind-blowing. Article after article after article after press release and press release about water in space in amounts that are completely mind-blowing. Ocean worlds, water in the solar system and beyond. In 2009, NASA found a sprawling cloud of cold water vapor around a solar system to a nearby star. The water vapor could eventually deliver oceans to dry planets that are forming in the system. It's water vapor. It's not water in some weird thing. It's water vapor they're talking about here. Could eventually bring oceans to new planets forming. This is just a little disturbing. And just hold on to your faith. The famous Eye of God nebula actually weeping tears of water. Wow, so there's water coming out of this nebula. This is not just a solar system. This is a nebula. This is a place where galaxies are born. Stars and galaxies are born in a nebula. And water is coming out of this. Can you imagine the size of the water that's coming out of a nebula? It's like one drop of that will engulf our entire solar system. And it just goes on. You know, oceans detected inside Saturn's moon, and stars found shooting water bullets. NASA confirms best ever evidence water on Mars. Water from Orion. Now there's water coming out of the constellation of Orion. And this is a big one. Star found shooting water bullets. I mean, a star shooting water bullets. A star is supposed to be a sun. There's water on a star. I challenge you after this evening, go to the pub tomorrow, strike up a conversation with somebody and tell them, did you know that there's water on the sun? What do you think they're going to tell you? You're a freaking idiot. They don't have enough information. So we're getting to this point now that you can't have a discussion with somebody about any subject unless they have sufficient amount of information, because they'll constantly block you, tell you you're stupid, and so forth. So it's tricky, and we have to navigate this river of discussion and debate very gently and very carefully, because we're going to lose friends and families and break up partnerships because of new knowledge and information that some of us embrace and others discard as BS. So then they do a study, NASA, and they say basically all stars have water. This is the conclusion. I'm not going to read the fine print. You can do this yourself. All stars have water. That's the conclusion. And stellar sprinkler nourishes galactic garden. Wow, I didn't realize there was a garden out there in the cosmos. It's being watered by some stellar sprinkler. That's lovely. I'd love to see this garden. I wonder how big those plants are, dude. Man, wow. This is like bigger than that tree on Pandora. And then water on the sun. Stanford University tells us that there's water on the sun. And even better, a more appropriately named university, Waterloo University, tells us that there's water on the sun. And I'm going to leave this here because you need to go and do some of your own research here. It seems to me that the universe and the water are the same thing. On the left is one of those deep space images of the universe. On the right is a picture of a swimming pool. And I think you start seeing what's going on here. And the lies and the deceptions are getting bigger and bigger. Also keep in mind that many of the images that we get shown by NASA come from radio telescopes, not from optical telescopes that actually photograph an object. It's a radio telescope that brings radio signals, and then they convert those into beautiful images through NASA's artistic impression graphic designers, right? So these are often you don't see pictures. These are radio telescopes. Our very own solar system is completely surrounded by water. They tell us it's ice, but can we believe them? Is it ice or is it water? Like water vapor, like that other thing. I don't know, but we call it the Kuiper Belt. It's a belt in a disk that surrounds the outer perimeter of the disk of our own solar system. Our solar system is a disk. Keep that in mind. I'm going to come back to this. So is the Kuiper Belt, this huge amount of ice, right? And that whole thing is now completely engulfed by more water called the Oort cloud that completely engulfs our entire solar system. It looks something like that. So suddenly, our own solar system is made up of water, surrounded by water, and yet there's supposed to be vacuum in space? How does this work? Where does that vacuum in the water, how does that break up? How does it work? Where does the water go? Where does the vacuum begin or end? And it's a little confusing for me. But we know that there's water in space because they keep telling us there's water in space. So suddenly the Bible makes a lot more sense to me because I've always had a problem with one of those statements in the opening phrases of the Bible, when the Spirit of God moved over the waters. How can the Spirit of God move over the waters when nothing has been created yet? Surely water should be part of the creation. And I'm starting to see now why water is so sacred. Is it possible that water is so sacred because water is actually foundation of all creation, or it's connected to all creation? Well, if you look at chemistry, it seems like it, because between oxygen and hydrogen, you've pretty much got the same elements in every other chemical reaction or chemical formula. Hydrogen and oxygen are part of pretty much everything. You cannot separate it. Hydrogen and oxygen make water. So it starts to get really interesting and compelling to think that water is actually made up of space. And God said, "Let there be light." So the Spirit of God is moving across the waters, and it's the sound of the Creator that makes the light. How does that work? Well, in modern science, it's known as sonoluminescence. When you put a sound frequency into a body of water, after a little while, a beautiful bubble appears filled with light. Sound in water. Sonoluminescence. God said, "Let there be light." Is it possible that water is the stuff that holds the universe together? I'm beginning to believe that. I'm no longer believing the lies of NASA and their fake CGI images that they send us and give us. Sorry. In 2013, astronaut Luca Parmitano almost drowned on a spacewalk. How does an astronaut almost drown in a spacewalk? And they covered it up by putting out a press release. So it's like they always have a back door. They always have a back door out. But if space is water, where does the watery space begin? Where is the edge? Well, if we start listening to what the Bible tells us in some ancient scriptures, maybe we should listen to all of it. It says, God placed the firmament in the sky to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters below. I have no idea what that means, but I'm starting to get an interesting picture. And then how did God create the flood? It tells us God opened the gates of heaven to let the water pour in on the earth. Okay, now I'm starting to see how you can create a flood. If space is water, it's starting to make more sense. And then suddenly, vacuum just becomes a myth and not a scientific fact. Because the simple basic physics of a vacuum in space just doesn't work. If there are any scientists that actually just think about this, or physicists, the whole thing of vacuum in space is just not compatible with any kind of physics formula or physics that we can put to it. Where does the vacuum begin? Vacuum is one of the most powerful forces of nature. Where does that vacuum begin? We often get confused between gravity-free and vacuum. They're not the same thing. Just because there's no gravity doesn't mean you're in a vacuum. And just because you're in a vacuum doesn't mean there's no gravity. The two are not the same thing. So don't get confused by vacuum and gravity-free. What you can't do in space or in a vacuum, what you can't do in infinite vacuum is you can't propel sound, you can't have explosions, fire, propulsion, jet engines, rockets, none of this stuff. Can't do that because there's nothing to propel against. And then these guys on YouTube that make these vacuum tubes, they go, oh, look, I created a vacuum tube in my garage. I'll show you that you can propel a rocket in a vacuum. I go, really? You've lost your brain. You're comparing a fishbowl in your garage to the infinite vacuum of space? You really lost your mind, dude. And then you start watching like SpaceX sending a rocket up into space, and they're very well-trained presenter that's got all the buzzwords. She knows all the lingo and all the buzzwords. And at one stage I was watching and she says, and the rocket is about to enter the vacuum of space. Really? And millions of people are watching this and they believe this. You see, they just, oh, the rocket just entered the vacuum of space. Where? How did it, where? Please frickin' explain that to me. In scientific terms, not in BS terms. Oh, you won't understand it. No, please try me. I want to understand this. Explain to me where that vacuum begins. And we start realizing that everything we've been told about the moon landing, space, is probably one of those big hoaxes. The Mars landing, you know, and when we first landed on Mars, I got so excited. I was just really excited about the Mars probe and all the pictures from Mars. Boy, it was like one of the happiest days of my life. So for me to come to terms and admit that this is probably a hoax is just really a tough pill to swallow. But unfortunately, we have to swallow these pills because when you start researching the whole Mars landing and the experiments and the training they did in the Canadian Arctic on Devon Island, I suspect that pretty much everything and all the footage we've ever seen on Mars was actually just shot on Devon Island, very far northern Canada. And it's depressing, but that's what it is. And we've got to deal with it. Sound and resonance are the common links of creation. And this brings us back to sanity and back to centering ourselves and back to getting a glimpse of what's really going on in our lives, getting a closer feel of the nature of reality. And it's the common links of creation. We live in an electromagnetic universe. This is what we are told, where everything spins and vibrates, right? Except the moon, obviously. But everything else spins and vibrates, but not the moon. It's very special. Because it's a bloody hologram, that's why. It doesn't vibrate and spin. And the electromagnetic universe is actually a subtle deception. And you'll understand as we go why I say this. It's a very subtle deception, a very important subtle deception. Because it's not the electromagnetic universe that we live in. It's the magneto-electric universe that we live in. And just twisting those two around would have given us a very different perception while we grow up about the world that we live in and the universe and this reality of us. If we don't think of it as the electromagnetic but the magneto-electric. Huge consciousness shift in growing up with that kind of thinking. Everything has its own specific frequency, as we mentioned before. Prime resonance frequency. Everything vibrates at its own frequency. That's how we can manipulate things with frequency and sound and resonance. All comes to the same thing when you start breaking it down. Sound and resonance are also the common links of all creation. In Christianity, we have the Word. We've been through that. We have the in Hinduism, the Egyptians that sang the universe into creation. And my favorite, the Aboriginals that believe the world was sung into creation with 3 sacred songs, or brought into creation with 3 sacred songs, which is the equivalent to the Holy Trinity. And we start seeing the whole important structure of music and resonance and chord structures, harmonic resonance in music. We get the 6 days of creation very obviously become visible in sacred geometry, and the 6 aspects of show us cymatic patterns, and the 6 aspects of the all-seeing eye of Horus show us 6 very obvious resonating ratios that tell us that all these ancient cultures understood sound, resonance, and frequency, and it's encoded in all the things that they did. Sound is the source of all creation, and it's all about coherence and harmonic resonance. Even in our bodies, if the cells of our body are not in coherent harmonic resonance, our cells are in dis-ease, in disease, and that's why we get sick. And if we're not resonating with the earth frequencies, the natural earth frequencies of Gaia, we are in dis-ease with the Mother Earth that we live on and walk on, and that's why we get sick. So everything in modern technology, in broadcasting, in industry, in the large corporations and military, all the stuff that is imposed on us is all there to create dissonance between us and our environment, to make us sick. And we need to be cognizant of this and conscious of this. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is everywhere around us. Everything that we touch that's been given to us by the big electronics companies causes dissonance and dis-ease that make us sick on levels that we can't even begin to imagine. From mind control to making us do things that we normally wouldn't do. Obviously, Hans Jenny's beautiful documentary called Cymatics in the 60s will show you exactly how sound is pretty much behind everything in creation. So please go and look at this on YouTube. It's available free of charge.
Alright, folks, let's get this party started. Alright, so first, you are listening to brooklynstation.com. Be sure to catch our sister sites, sisterdobong.com and KINGANDQUEENRADIO.com for other programming. And, let's see, where were we? Oh, yeah, I'm going to be playing some of our artist songs from Nigeria and Ghana, our African artists. Please go to Spotify, Apple, or our website, either one of them, any one of them. They'll have links to download their music, and I highly recommend doing that because it helps support the artists, and, you know, everybody, every little bit counts these days, as I'm sure you know. Anyway, let's get this started. Now, see, the last time we ended on the end of the floods, so we're going to start right there and then move on into the story of Babel and the end of Sumeria. I will note that I actually, in my research, discovered a grimoire of Anunnaki methodology of esoterics, which was actually kind of surprising. It's called the Book of Ramadash, and I think I was going to go into monetary policy on the next episode, but the Book of Ramadash is kind of like really interesting, and then that leads to some declassified documents and some eyewitness testimony on some events involving Anunnaki back in 1947 through 49 with the U.S. government. So we'll get into that on the next episode. Anyway, we're gonna start right where we ended, which is them coming, the Anunnaki coming back to Earth after the flood. So, definitely an interesting story all the way around, to say the least. Let me get this all set up. There we go. All right. So. In their whirlwinds to the other peak of Arata they flew over. The boat of Zayasudra they saw. By the altar that he had built they landed. When Enlil the survivors saw Ninango among them, his fury no bounds had. Because you remember he said no earthlings were to survive. And of course Enki showed Zayasudra, or Noah as some may know him, when there's many different names for this particular character throughout different cultures. Every earthling had to perish, he with fury shouted at Enki. With anger he lunged. To kill his brother with his bare hands he was ready. He is no mere mortal, my son he is, Enki to Zayasudra was pointing, and cried out to Enlil. For a moment Enlil was hesitating. You broke your oath, at Enki he shouted. To a reed wall I spoke, not Zayasudra, Enki said. Then to Enlil the dream vision he related. By then, by Ninagol alerted, Ninurta and Ninmah in their whirlwinds also touched down. When the account of events they heard, Ninurta and Ninmah by the account were not angered. The survival of mankind is the will of the Creator of all, must be. So did Ninurta to his father say. Ninmah, her necklace of crystals, a gift of Anu, touched and swore. On my oath, the annihilation of mankind shall never be repeated. Relenting, Enlil by the hands Zayasudra and Emzara his spouse took and blessed them thus. Be fruitful and multiply, the earth replenish. Thus were the olden times ended. It was after the encounter at Arata that the waters of the deluge to recede continued, and the face of the earth gradually from under the waters was showing. The mountain lands were mostly unscathed, but the valleys under the mud and silt were buried. From the celestial boats and from the whirlwinds the Anunnaki the landscapes surveyed. All that in the olden times in the Eden and the Absu had existed under the mud was buried. Eridu, Nibrukai, Shurubak, Sipar, all were gone, completely vanished. But in the Cedar Mountains, the great stone platform in the sunlight glistened. The landing place in the olden times established was still standing. One after another, the whirlwinds upon the platform landed. The platform was intact. At the launch corner, the huge stone blocks held firm. Clearing debris and tree branches away, the first to land to the chariots signaled. One after the other, the celestial chariots came. Upon the platform they touched down. Then to Marduk on Lamu and Nanar on the moon words were sent, and they too to earth returned. Upon the landing place they came down. Lamu, by the passage of Nibiru, was devastated, so did Marduk relate. Its atmosphere sucked out, its waters thereafter evaporated, a place of dust storms it is now. The moon by itself life cannot sustain, only with eagle masks is staying enabled. So did Nanar to the other's account give, and then words of Enamor he added. Once there, it was Tiamat's host's leader one must recall. Of Earth a companion it is, with it Earth's destiny is connected. Lovingly Enlil on his shoulders Lovingly Enlil on his son's shoulders his arm put. With survival now we are concerned. So did Enlil to Nanar mildly report. Now, sustenance is our first concern. Let us the sealed creation chamber examine. Perchance Nibiru's seeds we will still find. So did Enlil to Enki say, of the grains once created him reminding. At the side of the platform, clearing some mud, the shaft from times remote they found. The stone that blocked it they lift off, the sanctuary they entered. The diorite chests with seals were fastened, the seals with a copper key they made open. Inside the chest, in crystal vessels, the seeds of Nibiru's grain were there. Once outside, to Ninurta Enlil the seeds gave. To him he was thus saying, Go, the mountainside terrace, let the grains of Nibiru once again bread provide. In the Cedar Mountains, on other mountains too, Ninurta waterfalls he did dam. Terraces constructed. The eldest son of Ziasudra to raise crops he taught. To Ishkar the youngest Enlil another task assigned. Where the waters have receded go, and remaining fruit-bearing trees find. To him as fruit cultivator Ziasudra's youngest son was assigned. The first fruit they found, the vine that by Ninmah was brought. It was of its juice as the Anunnaki's elixir renowned. Ziasudra took a sip. By one sip, then another and another, Ziasudra was overpowered. Like a drunkard, he fell asleep. Then a gift to Anunnaki and Earthlings Enki presented. The chest that Ningal had carried he unveiled, its surprising contents to all he announced. The life essence and life eggs in the wombs of four-legged animals from Ziasudra's boat can be combined. Sheep for wool and meat will multiply, cattle for milk and hides will all have. Then with other living creatures the earth we shall replenish. To Dumuzi the shepherding task Enki gave. In the task was Ziasudra's middle son assisting. Then to the dark-hued landmass where his and his son's domains had been, Enki his attention turned. With an Inagal at the confluence of mighty waters the mountains he dammed. Fierce waterfalls to a lake he channeled to let the waters as a lake accumulate. Then the lands between the Absu and the great sea with Marduk he surveyed. Where habitations once were, the river's valley how to drain he considered. At midstream where the river's waters cascaded, an island from the waters he raised. In its bowels twin caverns he carved out, above them from stone sluices he fashioned. From there 2 channels in the rocks he cut, for the waters 2 narrows he fashioned. Thus the flowing waters from the highlands coming he could slow or let go faster with dams and sluices and 2 narrow waters that he used to regulate. From the cavern island, the island of Abu, the river's serpentine valley from under the waters he raised. In the land of the two narrows for Dumuzi and the shepherds, a habitation did Enki fashion. With the satisfaction did Enlil all this to Nibiru words send. With words of concern, Nibiru responded, the close passage that Earth and Lamu effected on Nibiru too much damage caused. The shield of gold dust was torn. The atmosphere was dwindling again. New supplies of gold were quickly needed. Fervently to the Abzu Enki went. With Gibel his son to survey and search he journeyed. All the gold mines were gone. By the avalanche of water they were buried. In the Eden, bad Tiberia too no longer existed. In Sippar, a place for the chariots, no more. The hundreds of Anunnaki who in the mines in bad Tiberia toiled from the earth were gone. The multitude of earthlings as primitive workers serving by the deluge were to clay turned. No gold can earth any more be provided, so did Enlil and Enki to Nibiru announce. On earth and on Nibiru there was desperation. At that time Ninurta, his tasks in the mountains of cedars completed, to the mountain lawn beyond the oceans once again journeyed. From that land, on the other side of earth, astounding words he delivered. This is, by the way, South America. The avalanche of waters deep cuts into the mountainsides there tore. From the mountainsides, uncounted gold in nuggets large and small, to the rivers below fell down. Without mining can the gold be hauled. Enlil and Enki to the distant mountain land hurried. With amazement they the discovery viewed. Gold, pure gold, refining and smelting not requiring, all about was lying. A miracle it is, so was Enki to Enlil saying, what by Nibiru has wrought, by Nibiru was amended. The unseen hand of the creator of all, it is life on Nibiru to enable, so did Enlil say. Now who could collect the nuggets, how to Nibiru they would be sent, the leaders asked each other. Of the first question, Ninurta had the answer. In the high mountain line on this side of earth, some earthlings have survived. Descendants of KN they are, with the handling of metals they are knowing. 4 brothers and 4 sisters are their leaders, on rafts they themselves saved. Now their mountaintop in the midst of a great lake is an island. Okay, again, this is South America, and this is the beginning of what eventually became the Aztec Empire, Mayans. There's a whole bunch that go back. I forget the name of them all, because there's so many different civilizations that go back a lot further than official science will ever let you know. Now, let's see. As the protector of their forefathers, they me recall, the great protector they call me. By the report that other earthlings had survived, the leaders were heartened. Even Enlil, who the end of all flesh planned, was no longer angered. Yeah, you think? It is the will of the creator of all, to each other they said. Now let us a new place for celestial chariots establish, therefrom the gold to Nibiru send. For a new plain whose soil has dried and hardened they search. In the proximity of the landing place, in a desolate peninsula, such a plain they found. Flat as a quiet lake it was, by white mountains it was surrounded. Now is the account of the new place of the celestial chariots, and the artificed twin mounts, and how the image of the lion by Marduk was usurped. In the peninsula by the Anunnaki the chosen, the heavenly ways of Anu and Enlil on earth were reflected. Let the new place of the chariots precisely on that boundary be located. Let the heart of the plain the heavens reflect. So did Enlil to Enki suggest. Once Enki to this agreed, Enlil from the skies of distances took measures. On a tablet a grand design for all to see he marked out. Let the landing place in the Cedar Mountains be part of the facilities, he said. The distance between the landing place and the chariot place he measured. In the midst thereof, a place for a new mission control center he designated. There a suitable mount he selected, the Mount of Way Showing he named it. A platform of stones, akin but smaller than the landing place, to be built there he ordered. In its midst a great rock was carved inside and out to house a new bond, heaven, earth. It was made. A new navel of the earth, the role of Nibru Kai before the deluge to replace. The landing path on the twin peaks of Arata in the north were anchored. To demarcate the landing corridor, Enlil, two other sets of twin peaks required. To delimit the landing corridor's boundary, ascent and descent to secure. In the southern part of the desolate peninsula, a place of mountains, twin adjoining peaks, Enlil selected. On them, the southern delimit he anchored. Where the second set of twin peaks was required, mountains there were none. Only a flat land above the water-clogged valley from the ground protruded. Artificial peaks thereon we can raise, so did Ningishida to the leaders say. On a tablet, the image of smooth-sided skyward rising peaks for them he drew. If it can be done, let it be so, Enlil with approval said. Let them also as beacons serve. On the flat land above the river's valley, Ningishida a scale model built. The rising angles and four smooth sides with it he perfected. Next to it a larger peak he placed, its sides to earth's four corners he set. By the Anunnaki, with their tools of power, were its stones cut and erected. Beside it, in a precise location, the peak that was its twin he placed. With galleries and chambers for pulsating crystals he designed it. When this artful peak to the heavens rose, to place upon it the capstone, the leaders were invited. Of electrum, an admixture by Gibble fashion, was the apex stone made. The sunlight to the horizon it reflected. By night, like a pillar of fire it was. The power of all the crystals to the heavens in a beam it focused. When the artful works by Ningishida designed were completed and ready, the Anunnaki leaders the great twin peak entered. At what they saw they marveled. Eker, house which like a mountain is, they named it. A beacon to the heavens it was. That the Anunnaki the deluge survived and prevailed forever, it proclaimed. Now the new place of the celestial chariots gold from across the seas can receive. From it the chariots to Nibiru the gold for survival shall carry. So they're saying take the gold from South America to Egypt and ship it to Nibiru from there. Interestingly enough, they did find a few of the leaves from the plant, the coca plant, which is what they make cocaine from, in a pharaoh's tomb. And there's only one place in the world that grows, which is, of course, South America. Alright, let's see. From it to the east, where the sun on the designed day rise, they will ascend. To it to the southwest, where the sun on the designated day sets, they will descend. Then Enlil, by his own hand, the Nibiru crystals activated. Inside, eerie lights began to flicker, an enchanting hum, the stillness broke. Outside, the capstone all at once was shining, brighter than the sun it was. The multitude of assembled Anunnaki a great cry of joy uttered. Ninmah, by the occasion moved, a poem recited and sang. House that is like a mountain, house with a pointed peak. For heaven earth it is equipped, the handiwork of the Anunnaki it is. House bright and dark, house of heaven and earth. For the celestial boats it was put together, by the Anunnaki built. House whose interior with a redder light of heaven grows. A pulsating beam that far and high reaches it emits. Lofty mountain of mountains, great and lofty fashion. Beyond the understanding of earthlings it is. House of equipment, lofty house of eternity. Its foundation stones the waters touch, its great circumference in clay is set. House whose parts are skillfully together woven, the great ones who in the skies circle to a resting make descent. House that for the rocket ships is a landmark with unfathomable insides. By Anu himself is the Eker blessed. So did Ninmah at the celebration recite and sing. While the Anunnaki their remarkable handiwork were celebrating, Enki to Enlil words of suggestion said. When in future days it will be asked, when and by whom has this marvel been fashioned? Let us beside the twin peaks a monument create, the age of lion let it announce. The image of Ningishida, the peak's designer, let its face be. Let it precisely toward the place of chariots, celestial chariots gaze. When, by whom, and the purpose, let it to future generations reveal. So did Enki to Enlil suggest. To the words Enlil consented, and Enki said, of the place of the celestial chariots, Utu must again the commander be. Let the gazing lion precisely eastward facing with Ningashida's image be. When the work to cut and shape the lion from the bedrock was proceeding, Marduk to his father, Enki, words of agreement said, to dominate the whole earth to me did you promise. Now command and glories to others are granted. Without task or dominion I am left. In my erstwhile domain are the artificed mountains situated. On the lion the image mine must be. By these words of Marduk, Ningashida was angered. The other sons were also annoyed. By the clamor for domains, Ninurta and his brothers were also aroused. Lands for themselves and devoted earthlings, i.e. slaves, everyone was demanding. Let not the celebration a contest become, Ninmah amidst the raised voices shouted. The earth is still in havoc. We Anunnaki are few. Of the earthlings there are only the survivors. Let Marduk, Ningashida, of the honor not deprive. Let us Marduk's words, though, also heed. So did Ninmah, the peacemaker, to the contending leaders say. For peace to prevail, the habitable lands between us should be apart set, Enlil to Enki said. To make the peninsula an uncontested divider they agreed. To the peacemaker Ninmah they it allotted. Tilman, land of the missiles, they named it. To earthlings it was beyond bounds. The habitable lands to the east thereof, to Enlil and his offspring, were set apart. For the descendants of two sons of Zayasudra, Shem and Yefet, therein to dwell. The dark-hued landmass that the Absu included to Enki and his clan was for domains granted. The people of Zayasudra's middle son, Ham, to inhabit it were chosen. To Marduk, their lord, of their lands the master, Enki, to appease his sons, suggested, by your wish, let it be so. Enlil to Enki about it said, in Tilman, in its mountainous south, an abode for Ninmah his mother Ninurta built. Near a spring with date trees, a verdant valley it was located. The mountain peak Ninurta terraced, a fragrant garden for Ninmah he planted. When all was thus completed, a signal to all outposts on earth was given. From the mountain lands across the ocean, whirlwinds the gold nuggets brought. From the place of celestial chariots to Nibiru, the gold was lofted. On that memorable day, Enlil and Enki to each other said and agreed, let us, Ninmah, the peacemaker, with a new epitaph name honor. Ninharsag, mistress of the mountain head, let us name her. By acclamation was Ninmah the honor given. Henceforth Ninharsag she was called. Praise to Ninharsag, on earth the peacemaker, in unison the Anunnaki proclaimed. When Marduk and Sarpana and their sons and daughters on Lahamu the deluge outwaited, the two sons, Asar and Satu, to the daughters of Shamgaz, the Igigi leader, a liking took. When to earth all returned, the two brothers and the two sisters espoused. Asar, the one called Asta, chose. Satu, the one called Nebat, betrothed. Yeah. Asar, with his father and Marduk in the dark-hued lands to abide, chose. Satu, near the landing place where the Igigi dwelt, with Shamgaz as his dwelling made. About the domains on earth was Shamgaz concerned. Where shall the Igigi, the masters of, be? So did Shamgaz, the other Igigi, incite. Of that Nebat to Satu daily spoke. By staying with his father, Asar, the successor alone shall be. The fertile lands he will inherit. So did Shamgaz and his daughter Nebat to Sati say day after day. How the succession in the hands of Satu alone to retain, father and daughter schemed. On an auspicious day they made a banquet. Igigi and Anunnaki to it they invited. Asar, unsuspecting to celebrate with his brother, also came. Nebat, his spouse's sister, prepared the table. Foodstools she also set. She beautied herself with lyre in hand. A song to many Asar she sang. Satu before him, choice roast meat cut, with salted knife for him, fatlings he served. Shamgaz in a large goblet, new wine to Asar offered, an admixture for him he had made. A large vessel, mighty to look on, with elixired wine he gave him. In good humor was Asar, merrily he arose and sang, with cymbals in his hand he chanted. Then by the admixtured wine he was overcome, to the ground he fell down. Let us for a sound sleep take him, the host to the others at the banquet said. They Asar to another chamber carried, in a coffin they him laid. Alright, we're going to take a second here, and you are listening to BrooklynStation.com. Be sure to check out KingandQueenRadio.com, and if you need a psychic reading, go to SisterDobong.com, or, you can call, and we'll put the number up here in a minute, after the songs. We'll do a commercial for the songs we're going to play. First, we're going to play one of my own, Infinite Sorrow, premiere of Booty Shakin' binaural jam, and it has footage of King and Queen Radio's appearance in both the Pride and the Dance Parade. And then we're going to play one of our artists, Jolly Boy, and I will announce the name of that song during and after. So be sure to stay tuned. Make sure that you go to either BrooklynStation.com, KingandQueenRadio.com, Spotify, Apple Music, and download our artist songs, which the links will be, as far as for the artist names, will be included in the description. So here we go. Alright, that was Infinite Sorrow, myself, with Red Sky Lullaby and a couple other people, and online jam, improvised actually. Next, we're going to play on one of our artists, one of the King and Queen and Brooklyn Station LLC artists called Jolly Boy from Africa, and this song will be called ABM. If you're watching this on any of my socials, the links to the King and Queen Radio, BrooklynStation.com artists will be included in the description. They're on Apple, Spotify, all that, and you really should go and just download their music because, man, you like the music, and it supports our people in Africa, our artists in Africa, and it's hard making it in as an artist, so they need all the support they can get. And again, you want to download their songs because it's good music. So what more do you need? Folks, we're back again. If you're watching this on my socials, you'll see the links for the artists down below. Please support them. It's like all artists in this world need all the support they can get, especially if you want to break them free from the media stranglehold they have on what we're exposed to. All right, so as you remember, we were talking about they got Asar drunk, and then they carried him to a chamber and laid him in a coffin. The coffin with tight seals they closed. Into the sea they threw it. When word of what had happened to Asta reached to Marduk, her husband's father, she raised a wailing. Asar to his depths in the sea was brutally thrown. Quickly must the coffin be found. They searched the sea for Asar's coffin, but the shores of the dark-hued land it was found. Inside the stiff body of Asar lay. From its nostrils the breath of life had departed. Now there's a lot of parallels to these stories in other histories from other cultures. There's an Egyptian, the story of Isis and Osiris is right here as well. Marduk, his clothes rent. On his forehead he put ashes. My son, Sarpanik cried and wept. Great was her grief and mourning. Enki was distraught and wept. The curse of Cain is repeated to his son in agony, he said. Asta to high heavens a wailing raised. To Marduk for revenge and an heir an appeal she made. Satu his death must meet. By your own seed a successor let me conceive. Let by your name his name remembered be, the lineage surviving. This, alas, cannot be done, Enki to Marduk and Asta said. The brother who killed the brother's brother must be the keeper. For this Satu must be spared. By his seed an heir to Asar ye must conceive. By these twists of fate, Asta was baffled. Distraught, the rules to defy, she was determined. Before the body of Asar was wrapped, and in a shroud preserved, from his phallus Asta the life seed of Asar extracted. With it Asta herself made conceive, an heir and avenger to Asar to be born. To Enki and his sons, to Marduk and his brothers, Satu word delivered. The sole heir and Marduk's successor am I. Of the land of the two narrows I will be the master. And this is also, the story of Zeus is very similar in the Greek mythology, the Greek histories, although the Greeks got a little crazy with it. It is still, this story is definitely there. So you have it in, you also have similar stories in, of course, your Vedic histories as well. Before the Anunnaki's council, Asta the claim refuted. With Asar's heir I am with child. Among the river's bulrushes with child she hid. The wrath of Satu she was avoiding. Horon she called the boy. To be his father's avenger she raised him. Satu by this was disconcerted. Shamgaz from ambitions did not retreat. From earth year to earth year, the Igigi and their offspring from the landing place spread. Unto the borders of Tilman, Ninharsag's sacred region, closer they moved. To overrun the place of the celestial chariots, the Igigi and their earthlings threatened. In the dark-hued lands, the child Horon, by earth's quick life cycles, to a hero grew. So that's Horus. By his great-uncle Gibel was Horon adopted. By him was he trained and instructed. For him Gibel winged sandals for soaring fashioned. Hermes, I believe, is it? Or Apollo? It's hard to remember. It's like I study so many histories that you can't really keep it all straight anymore. To fly like a falcon he was able. For him Gibel a divine harpoon made. Its arrows bolts of missiles were. In the highlands of the south did him Gibel the arts of metals and smithing teach. The secret of a metal called iron Gibel to Horon revealed. From it weapons Horon made. From loyal earthlings an army he raised. So that would be the first time that we were made into an army, and they planned to use this in their own disputes. To challenge Satu and the Igigi northward across the land and river they marched. When Horon and his earthlings army the border of Tilman, the land of missiles, reached, Satu to Horon, words of challenge sent. And this of course also brings to mind the battle between Set and Horus. Between us two alone is the conflict. Let us one-on-one in contest meet. In the skies above Tillman, Satu and his whirlwind for combat Horon awaited. When Horon toward him like a falcon skyward soared, a poisoned dart at him Satu shot, like a scorpion's sting it Horon felled. When Asta this saw, a cry to heaven she sent forth, for Ningishada she cried out. From his celestial boat, Ningishada came down to save the hero, for his mother he came. With magic powers, Ningishada the poison to benevolent blood converted. By morning was Horon healed, from the dead was he returned. Then with a fiery pillar, like a heavenly fish with fins and a fiery tail, Ningishada to Horon provided. Its eyes from blue to red to blue their colors changed. Toward the triumphant Satu, Horon in the fiery pillar soared. Far and wide each other they chased, fierce and deadly was the battle. At first Horon's fiery pillar was hit, then with his harpoon Horon Satu smote. To the ground Satu crashing down came, by Horon in tethers he was bound. When before the council Horon with his captive uncle came, they saw that he was blinded, his testicles squashed. Like a discarded jar he stood. Let Satu, blind and airless, live, so did Asta say to the council. To end his day as a mortal among the Agigi, the council his fate determined. Triumphant was Horon declared, the throne of his father to inherit. On a metal tablet was the council's decision inscribed, in the hall of records they placed it. In this abode Marduk with the decision was pleased, by what had happened he was sorrowed. Though Horon, a son of Asar, his son was, from Shamgaz, the Igigi he was descended. A domain, one as among the Anunnaki allotted, to him was not given, so Marduk still didn't have his place. Having lost both sons, in each other Marduk and Sarpanet solace sought. In time to them another son was born, Nabu, prophecy bearer, they named him. Now this is the account of why on the faraway a new chariot's place was built, and the love of Dumuzi and Inanna that Marduk by Dumuzi's death disrupted. Alright, so let's get this going. Let's see. Alright. It was after the contesting of Horon and Satu and their aerial battle over Tillman that Enlil his 3 sons to a council summoned. With concern to them of what was happening, he said, in the beginning the earthlings in our image and after our likeness were made. Now the Anunnaki offspring in the image and likeness of the earthlings became. Then it was Cain who his brother killed. Now a son of Marduk is his brother's killer. For the first time ever, an Anunnaki offspring from earthlings an army raised. Weapons from a metal of the Anunnaki a secret in their hands he placed. From the days when Alalu and Anzu our legitimacy was challenged. Disruption and rule breaking by the Igigi continued. Now the beacon peaks in the domain of Marduk are located. The landing place by the Igigi is held. Now toward the place of chariots the Igigi are advancing. In the name of Satu to all of heaven and earth facilities they claim will lay. So did Enlil to his 3 sons say. To take the counter steps to them he proposed. An alternative heaven-earth facility in secret to establish we must. Let it in Ninurta's land beyond the oceans, South America, in the midst of trusted earthlings come to be. Thus was the secret mission in the hands of Ninurta entrusted. In the mountains beyond the oceans, beside the great lake, a new bond, heaven-earth, he was setting up. Within an enclosure he placed it. At the foot of the mountains where the gold nuggets were scattered, a plain with firm ground he chose. On it for ascent and descent markings he made. Primitive are the facilities, but the purpose they will serve, so did Ninurta to his father Enlil in good time declare. From there gold shipments to Nibiru can continue. From there in need we too can ascend. At that time what was a blessed event began as a horrible occurrence ended. At that time Dumosi, Enki's youngest son, to Inanna, Nanar's daughter, a liking took. Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter, by the lord of herding was captivated. A love that knows no bounds engulfed them, a passion their hearts inflamed. Many of the love songs for a long time thereafter were sung. Inanna and Dumosi were the first to sing them. By song their love they recounted. To Dumosi, his youngest son, Enki, a large domain above the Abzu allotted. Meluha, the black land was its name. Highland trees there grew, its waters abundant were. Large bulls among its river reeds roamed, greatly numbered were its cattle. Silver from its mountains came, its copper bright as gold was a glitter. Greatly beloved was Dumosi by Enki. After the death of Asar he was favored. Of his youngest brother Marduk was jealous. Inanna by her parents Ninara Ningal was beloved. Enlil by her cradle sat. Beautiful beyond describing she was. In martial arts with Anunnaki heroes she competed. Of journeys in the heavens and of celestial boats from her brother Utu she learned. A sky ship of her own to roam in earth's skies, to her the Anunnaki presented. After the deluge on the landing platform, Dumosi and Inanna their eyes on each other set. At the dedication of the artificed mounts was between them a warm encounter. Hesitant at first they were, he of Enki's clan, she of Enlil and offspring. So you got your original Romeo and Juliet, right? When in the Harsag for peace the disputing clans together brought, Inanna and Dumosi away from the others to be together they managed, so they snuck off. Love to each other they professed. As they went strolling together, sweet words of alluring love to each other they said. Side by side they lay down, one heart with the other heart chatted. Next week when we go into the Ramashad, this will kind of make sense, because it is, more or less, they get their marriage approved, but basically Geshtinana seduced him to have an heir because she was his sister, and by sleeping with her and impregnating her, that gives them an heir that is in line for inheriting, whereas between Inanna and Dumosi, any child they have would not be in line for inheriting any royalty, any properties or territories. After she seduced him, he had a dream, and it's like basically she convinced him to go out on a run, and he ended up slipping and falling off the top of a cliff and dying. So. But at the same time, Inanna blamed him, so we're going to pick up where they find his body. When the lifeless body of Dumosi from the Great Lakes waters by Ninagal was retrieved, to the abode of Nergal and Ereshkigal in the lower Abzu the body was brought. On a stone slab was the dead body of Dumosi, a son of Enki, placed. When of what happened word to Enki was sent, Enki rent his clothes. On his forehead he put ashes. My son, for Dumosi he lamented. What have I sinned to be so punished? Out loud he asked. When I to earth from Nibiru came, Ea, he whose home is waters, was my name. With waters did the celestial chariots obtain their thrust powers. In waters I splashed down upon the earth. Then by an avalanche of waters the earth was swept over. In waters did Esar, my grandchild, drown. By waters my beloved Dumosi is now dead. Everything I had done for righteous purpose did I do it. Why am I punished? Why has fate against me turned? So did Enki bewail and lament. When from Geshtinana the veracity of occurrence was discovered, greater was Enki's agony. Now Marduk, my firstborn, for his deed will also suffer. By the disappearance and death of Dumuzi was Inanna worried, then grieved. Then to the lower Absu she hurried, Dumuzi's body for burial to retrieve. When Ereshkigal, her sister of the arrival of Inanna at the precinct's gate, was told, Ereshkigal, a devious scheme on the part of Inanna, suspected. At each of the 7 gates, one of Inanna's accoutrements and weapons was from her removed, then unclothed and powerless before Ereshkigal's throne. Of scheming an heir by Nergal, Dumuzi's brother, she was accused. Trembling with fury, Ereshkigal, to her sister's explanations, would not listen. Let loose against her the 60 diseases, Ereshkigal, her vizier Namtar, in anger ordered. By the disappearance of Inanna in the lower Absu were her parents much worried. Nanar to Enlil in the matter went, Enlil to Enki a message sent. From Nergal his son, Ereshkigal's spouse, Enki what had happened learned. From clay of the Absu, Enki 2 emissaries fashioned, beings without blood, by days unharmed. To the lower Absu he sent them, Inanna to bring back, whether alive or dead. When before Ereshkigal they came, Ereshkigal by their appearance was puzzled. Are you Anunnaki? Are you earthlings? With bewilderment she asked them. Namtar, the magical weapons of power against them directed, but unharmed the 2 were. To the lifeless body of Inanna he took the golems. Hanging from a stake she was. Upon the corpse the clay emissaries a pulsar and an emitter directed. Then the water of life on her they sprinkled. In her mouth the plant of life they placed. Then Inanna stirred. Her eyes she opened. From the dead Inanna had arisen. When the 2 emissaries, Inanna to the upper world, were ready to return, Inanna, the lifeless body of Dumuzi, to take along them she ordered. At the 7 gates of the lower Absu, to Inanna her accoutrements and attributes were returned. To the abode of Dumuzi in the Black Land, the lover of her youth, to take the emissaries she ordered. There to wash him with pure water, with sweet oil anoint him. Then to clothe him in a red shroud, upon a slab of lapis to lay him. Then in the rocks for him a rest place to carve out, the day of her rising there to await. As for herself, to the abode of Enki Inanna set her steps. Retribution for her brother's beloved's death she wanted, the death of Marduk the culprit she demanded. There has been death enough, Enki to her said. Marduk an instigator was, but murder he committed not. When Inanna learned that Marduk would not by Enki be punished, to her parents and brothers she went. To high heaven she a wailing raised, justice, revenge, death to Marduk she cried for. At Enlil's abode, his sons Inanna and Utu joined, for a council of war they had gathered. Ninurta, whom the rebel Anzu defeated for strong measures, argued. Of secret words between the Marduk and the Agigi exchanged, Utu to them reported. Of Marduk, an evil serpent, earth must be rid, Enlil with them agreed. When the demand for Marduk's surrender to Enki his father was sent, Enki to his abode, Marduk and all the other sons summoned. Though for my beloved Dumuzi I'm still grieving, Marduk's rights I must defend. Though evil did Marduk instigate, by ill fate, and not by his hand did Dumuzi die. Marduk is my firstborn, Enki is his mother. For succession he is destined. From death by Ninurta's gang, by us all he must be protected. So did Enki say. Only Gibel and Ninangal their father's call heeded. Ningishida was opposed. Nergal was hesitant. Only if in mortal danger he will I help, he said. It was after that a war of ferocity unknown between the 2 clans erupted. Unlike the contending of Horan and Satu of earthlings descended, it was a battle between Anunnaki. Niburian born among them on another planet was loosed. By Inanna was the warfare begun. In her skyship to the domains of Enki's sons she crossed over. Marduk to battle she challenged. To the domains of Ninigol and Gibel she him pursued. To assist her, Ninurta from his storm bird withering beams at the enemy's strongholds shot. Ishkur from the skies with scorching lightnings and smashing thunders attacked. In the Abzu from the river's fish he washed away, cattle in the fields he dispersed. To the north, the place of the artificial mounts, Marduk then retreated. Pursuing Ninurta on the inhabitations, poison-bearing missiles rained. His weapon that tears apart the people in those lands robbed of their senses. The canals that the river's waters bore, red from blood became. Ishkur's brilliances the night's darknesses into flaming days converted. As the devastating battles northward advanced, Marduk in the Eker himself ensconced. Gibel for it an unseen shield devised, Nergal to heaven its all-seeing eye raised. With a weapon of brilliance, by a horn directed, Inanna the hiding place attacked. Horon to defend his grandfather came. By her brilliance was his right eye damaged. While Utu the Agigi and their horde of earthlings beyond Tilman held off, at the foot of the artificial mounts, Anunnaki, this and that clan supporting, in battle clashed. Let Marduk surrender, let the bloodshed end, so did Enlil to Enki words convey. Let brother talk to brother, to Enki Ninharsag a message sent. In his hideout within the Eker, Marduk his pursuers to defy continued. Within the house which like a mountain is, his final stand he made. Inanna the massive stone structure could not surmount, its smooth sides her weapons deflected. Then Ninurta of the secret entrance learned, the swivel stone on the north side he found. Through a dark corridor Ninurta passed, the grand gallery he reached. Its vault, by the many-hued emissions of the crystals, like a rainbow was aglitter. Inside, by the intrusion alerted, Marduk with ready weapons Ninurta awaited. With weapons responding, smashing the wonder crystals, Ninurta up the gallery kept going. Into the upper chamber, the place of the great pulsing stone, Marduk retreated. King's chamber. At its entrance, Marduk the sliding stone locks lowered. From one and all admission they barred. Into the Eker Inanna and Ishkur Ninurta followed. What next to do they contemplated. Let the encased hiding chamber be Marduk's stone coffin, to them Ishkur said. To 3 blocking stones, ready for down gliding, he drew their attention. Let slow death, by alive being buried, be Marduk's sentence. Inanna gave her consent. At the end of the gallery, the 3 blocks let loose, each one of them 1 stone for plugging slid down, Marduk as in a tomb to seal. Now this is the account of how Marduk was saved and to exile departed, and how the Eker was dismantled and lordship over the lands rearranged. Away from the sun and light, without food or water, Marduk within the Eker alive was entombed. By his imprisonment and punishment, without trial, Sarpanit his spouse a wailing raised. To Enki her father-in-law she hurried, with the young son Nabu to him she came. To be among the living Marduk must be returned, to Enki Sarpanit said. He sent her to Utu and Nanar, who with Inanna can intercede. Wearing a garment of atonement, to the Lord Marduk give life, she pleaded. Let him humbly life continue, rulership he will lay aside. Appeased was not Inanna, for the death of my beloved, the instigator must die, she said. Ninharsag the peacemaker, the brothers Enki and Enlil summoned. Punishment to Marduk must come, death is not warranted to them, she said. Let Marduk in exile live, the succession on earth to Ninurta admit. Enlil by her words was pleased and smiled. Ninurta was his son, of Ninurta she was the mother. If between succession and life the choice is, what can I, a father, say? So did Enki with heavy heart answer, in my lands widespread is the desolation. Warfare must end, for Dumuzi I'm still mourning, let Marduk live in exile. If peace is to return and Marduk shall live, binding arrangements must be made, Enlil to Enki said. All facilities that heaven and earth bond to my hands alone must be entrusted. Excuse me. The mastery over the land of the two Narrows to another son of yours you must give. The Agigi whom Marduk follow, the landing place must give up and abandon. To a land of no return, by no descendant of Sudra inhabited, must Marduk and Exil go. So did Enlil forcefully declare, to be the foremost among the brothers he meant. The hand of fate, Enki in his heart acknowledged. Let it be so, with bowed head he said. Ningishida alone the Ekard innards know. Let him over its land the master be. After the decisions by the great Anunnaki were announced, Ningishida for the rescue they summoned. How Marduk from the blocked and sealed innards to extricate was his challenge. To let free the one who alive is buried, a task beyond conceiving to him they gave. Ningishida the Ekard's secret designs contemplated, how to circumvent the blockings he planned. Through a chiseled upper opening, Marduk will be rescued, to the leaders he said. At a place which I will show them, a doorway in the stones they will cut. From it upward, a twisting passageway they shall bore, a rescue shaft creating. Through hidden hollowings to the Ekard's mist they will continue. At the vortex of the hollowings through the stones they will break through. A doorway to the insides they will blow open, thereby the blockings circumnavigating. And there is a rough tunnel hewed through the pyramids, precisely meeting that description. Up the grand gallery they will continue. The 3 stone bars they will raise. The uppermost chamber, Marduk's death prison, they will reach. Anunnaki by Ningishida guided, his outline plan then followed. With tools that cracked the stones, the opening they made, the rescue shaft they fashioned. The insides of the artifice mount they reached, an exit they blew open. Circumnavigating the 3 blocking stones, the uppermost chamber they reached. On a small platform, the portcullises they raised. Marduk fainted, they rescued. Carefully through the twisting shaft, the Lord lowered. To fresh air they him brought. Outside, Sarpana and Nabu's spouse and father were awaiting. A joyful reunion it was. When to Marduk his father Enki the terms of release conveyed, Marduk was enraged. I would rather die than my birthright forfeit, he shouted. Sarpana into his arms Nabu thrust. We are part of your future, she softly said. Marduk was angered but humbled. To fate I yield, he said inaudibly. With Sarpana and Nabu to a land of no return he departed. To a place where horned beasts are hunted with wife and son he went, which that would be North America. After Marduk had departed, Ninurta the Ekard through the shaft re-entered. Through a horizontal corridor to the Ekard's vulva he went. In its east wall, in a niche artfully fashioned, the destiny stone a red radiance was emitting. Its power to kill me grabs, with a killing tracking it me seizes, Ninurta inside the chamber cried. Take it away. To obliteration, destroy it, to his lieutenants, Ninurta shouted. Retracing his steps through the grand gallery to the topmost chamber, Ninurta went. In a hollowed-out chest, the heart of the Ekard pulsated. Its net force by 5 compartments was enhanced. With his baton, Ninurta the stone chest struck. With a resonating sound, it responded. And by a net force, they mean gravitational pull. Its gugstone that directions determined, Ninurta ordered to be taken out to a place of his choice to be carried. Coming down the grand gallery, Ninurta the 27 pairs of Nibiru crystals examined. Many in his fight with Marduk were damaged. Some the struggle intact survived. To remove the whole ones from their grooves, Ninurta ordered. The others with his beam he pulverized. Outside the house which like a mountain is, Ninurta in his black bird soared. To the apex stone his attention he turned, his enemy's epitome it represented. With his weapons he shook it loose, to the ground in pieces it toppled. So there went the top of the pyramid. By this the fear of Marduk is forever ended, Ninurta victorious declared. On the battlefield the Anunnaki assembled, the praise of Ninurta announced. Like Anu you are made, to their hero and leader they shouted. To replace the incapacitated beacon, a mountain near the place of celestial chariots was chosen. Within its innards, the salvaged crystals were rearranged. Upon its peak, the Gug stone, the stone of directing, was installed. Mount Mashu, Mount of the Supreme Celestial Bart, the mount was called. At that time, Enlil, his 3 sons, summoned. Nilil and Ninharsag also attended. Commands over olden lands to confirm, lordships over new lands to assign they met. To Ninurta, who Anzu and Marduk had vanquished, the Enlilship powers were granted. In all the lands his father's surrogate to be. Of the landing place in the Cedar Mountains, lordship was given to Ishkur. To his domain northward thereof was the landing place joined. The lands south and east thereof, where the Igigi and their offspring had spread, to Nanar as an everlasting endowment were giving, by his descendants and followers to keep and to hold. The peninsula wherein the place of chariots was, in Nanar's hands was included. Utu as commander of the place and of the navel of the earth was confirmed. So he was commanding of the place of chariots and the navel of the earth. In the land of the 2 narrows, as agreed, Enki to Ningashai to the lordship did assign. To that none of Enki's other sons objected. To that Inanna was opposed. To the heritage of Damazi, her deceased bridegroom, did Inanna claim lay. A dominion of her own of Enki and Enlil she demanded. How Inanna's demands to satisfy the leaders contemplated. About the lands and the peoples the great Anunnaki who the fates decreed counsel took. Regarding the earth and its resettled words with Anu they exchanged. From the time of the deluge, the great calamity, almost 2 shars had passed. The earthlings had proliferated through mountain lands to dried lowlands they went. Of civilized mankind, by Zaya Sudra there were descendants. With Anunnaki seed they were intermixed. Offspring of Igigi who intermarried roamed about in the distant lands of Cain's kinfolk survived. Few and lofty were the Anunnaki who from Nibiru had come, few were their perfect descendants. How settlements for themselves and for and earthlings to establish the great Anunnaki considered. However, how over mankind lofty to remain, how to make the many the few obey and serve. So basically, at this point, they're worried because we outnumber them, and they kind of included us in our wars. And it's implied here, if you read between the lines, that human beings at this point had done something that made it so the Anunnaki considered them a threat, basically. About all that, about the future, the leaders with Anu words exchanged. To come to Earth one more time, Anu decided. With Antu his spouse, he wished to come. And that was, it's estimated about roughly 4000 BC. To come to Earth one more time, Anu decided. With Antu his spouse, he wished to come. While his arrival they awaited, the Anunnaki abodes in the Eden to re-establish began. From the mountains, the lands where descendants of Shem dwelt, to the olden land, the black-headed people migrated, that's the Sumerians. Upon the newly dried soil, the Anunnaki let them settle, food for all to provide. So basically the Sumerians, and of course you heard the story by the teliinger on one of my episodes talking about all them 10 million ruins of a food producing plant down there in South Africa, in mid Africa, which is of course the Absu. where Eridu, Enki's first city before the deluge, had stood. On top of the myriads of mud and silt, a new Eridu was marked out. In its center, upon a raised platform, an abode for Enki and Ninki was built. House of Tile, Lord whose return is triumphant, it was called. With gold and silver and precious metals by Enki's sons provided, it was adorned. Above, in a circle skyward pointing, the 12 constellations by their signs were marked out. Below, as in the Abzu, waters with swimming fishes flowed. In a sanctuary, a place that no uninvited can enter, Enki, the ME formulas kept. That was basically, the MEs held all their information on it. It was basically the secrets of civilization, long life, and all that. For Enlil and Ninlil, a next Nibiru Kai atop the mud and silt was established. Amid its people's dwellings and cattle folds and stalls, a sacred precinct was walled off. So this is when they went from being like the Anunnaki to making themselves these precincts, these sacred precincts. So that's where our sanctuaries or our temples began. And they started to set themselves up as gods, basically. So, an abode for Enlil and Ninlil therein was built. In 7 stages it rose. A stairway rising as to heaven to the topmost platform led. So Ziggurat, his tablets of destinies did Enlil there keep. With his weapons it was protected. The lifted eye that scans the lands, the lifted beam that penetrates all. In the courtyard, in its own enclosure, Enlil's fast-stepping skybird was kept. As the time for the arrival of Anu and Antu neared, for their stay in the Eden, a new place was selected. Neither Enlil's nor Enki's to be. Unug-Kai, the delightful place it was named. Shade trees in it were planted. A pure white structure, the house of Anu, in its midst was built. And by the way, this particular place, I forget the specific megalithic structure it is, but it's in South America, and this place has been found. Of course, it was stripped of all its gold and stuff, but that's another story. Its exterior in 7 stages rose. Its interior is like a king's quarter was. When the celestial chariot of Anu at Earth arrived, Anunnaki sky ships toward it soared. For a safe landing at the place of chariots and tillmen, it was guided. Utu, the place's commander, his great-grandparents to planet Earth welcomed. The 3 children of Anu, Enlil, and Enki, and Ninharsag stood there to greet them. They embraced and kissed, they laughed and cried. So long has the separation been. They to each other kept saying. Now, this was 4000 BC, give or take, keep in mind. At each other they looked, aging to examine. Though greater in stars were the parents, younger than the children they looked. The 2 sons looked old and bearded. Ninharsag, once a beauty, was bent and wrinkled. All 5 of them with tears were filled. Tears of joy with sorrowed tears were mingled. In sky ships were the guests and their hosts to the Eden taken. In a prepared place beside Unug-Kai, the sky ships landed. All the Anunnaki that on earth had stayed as an honor guard were standing. Hail and welcome, in unison to Anu and Antu they were shouting. Then in a procession, singing and music playing, the Anunnaki to the house of Anu, the guest accompanied. In the house of Anu, Anu washed and rested, then he was perfumed and clothed. Antu, by female Anunnaki, to the house of the golden bed was escorted. There she too washed and rested, then was perfumed and clothed. In the open courtyard, as an evening breeze, the tree leaves rustled. Anu and Antu on thrones were seated. Flanking them were Enlil and Enki and Ninharsag. Attendants, earthlings who were completely naked, wine and good oil served. Others in the courtyard in the corner of the courtyard, a bull and a ram, gifts of Enlil and Enki on a fire were roasting. A great banquet was for Anu and Antu prepared. For the sign in the heavens its start was awaiting. On Enlil's instructions, Zumu, who in matters of stars and planets was learned, the steps of the house of Anu ascended, the rising of the planets at eventime to announced. On the first step, Kishar and the eastern stars appeared. Lahumu, or the second step, was seen. Mumu on the third step was announced. Anshar on the fourth step rose. Lamu on the fifth step was seen. The moon from the sixth step announced. Then on a signal from Zumu, the hymn of the planet of Anu in the sky rises began to be sung. For from the topmost step, the seventh, the red-haloed Nibiru into view came. To music the Anunnaki clapped and danced and partied. They danced and sang. To the one who grows bright, the heavenly planet of Lord Anu, they sang. On the signal, a bonfire was lit. Seen from place to place where the bonfires started. Before the night was over, the whole land of Eden was with bonfires lit. Of what on earth had transpired, their accounts he heard. Of the peace and the warfare he learned. Of how the earthlings, by the oath of Enlil to be wiped off, had again proliferated, Anu heard. Of the gold discovery and the land beyond the oceans, and the chariots placed there, Enlil to him revealed. It was then that of the dream and the tablet from Galzu Enki to his father told. By that was Anu greatly puzzled. A secret emissary by that name to earth by me was never sent. So did Anu to the three leaders say. So there's this mysterious third party involved here that, seems to be basically from the creator. Puzzled were Enki and Enlil, baffled they at each other looked. On account of Galzu, Zayasudra and the seed of life were saved, Enki said. On account of Galzu on earth we remained, Enlil to his father said. The day to Nibiru you return you shall die, so did Galzu to us say. Incredulous of that was Anu. The change of cycles indeed havoc did cause, but with elixirs it was cured. Whose emissary, if not yours, was Galzu? Enki and Enlil in unison said. Who the earthlings to save wanted, who on earth made us stay? Ninharsag, her head slowly nodded. For the creator of all did Galzu appear. Was the creation of the earthlings also destined? Of that I must wonder. And next week we're going to go into this a little bit, because I have some interesting information on all that too. For a while the four of them were silent, each one past events in his heart recounted. While fates we decreed, the hand of destiny every step directed, so did Anu say. The will of the creator of all is clear to see. On earth and for earthlings, only emissaries we are. The earth to the earthlings belongs, to preserve and advance them we were intended. If that is our mission here, let us accordingly act, so did Enki say. The great Anunnaki, who the fates decree councils exchange regarding the lands. To create civilized regions, the great Anunnaki decided therein knowledge to mankind to provide. Cities of men to establish, therein sacred precincts, abodes for the Anunnaki create. Kingship as in Nibiru on earth to establish, crown and scepter to a chosen man give. So there you go, this begins the priest kings. By him the word of the Anunnaki to the people convey, work and dexterity to enforce, the overseers, time to get back to work. In the sacred precincts, a priesthood to establish, the Anunnaki as lofty lords they will serve and worship. Secret knowledge to be taught, civilization to mankind to convey. To create 4 regions, 3 for mankind, 1 restricted, the Anunnaki resolved. The first region in the olden Eden land to establish, for Enlil and his sons to dominate. The second region in the land of the Tunera was thereafter to follow, for Enki and his sons to lord. The third region, with the other 2 not mingling, in a distant land to Inanna grant. The fourth region, for the Anunnaki alone consecrated, the peninsula of the place of the chariots will be. Now this is the account of Anu's journeys to the lands beyond the oceans. Now this is where they go to the temple that they found in South America, and how in the first region for the Anunnaki cities were reestablished. Having this decision about the 4 regions of mankind's civilizations made, Anu about his grandson Marduk inquired. I must see him again. To the leaders, Anu said, whether by Damazi or Ningashida to Nibiru inviting, Marduk's ire I myself have caused. So did Anu wonder. To reconsider the punishment of Marduk he wished. When to the lands beyond the oceans you journey, Marduk to meet you will be told. The land where he roams, in those parts of the earth it is, so did Enlil and Anu say, because he was in North America. Before, for the distant lands, the royal couple went. The Eden and its lands, Anu and Antu surveyed. Eridu and Nibiru Kui they visited. Where the cities of the first region were planned, they saw. In Eridu, Enlil about Enki complained. The ME formulas to himself Enki is keeping. Anu, on the seat of honor seated, words of praise to Enki said, my son for himself a magnificent house built, beautifully on a platform it is raised. To the people that house surround and serve, great knowledge will Enki give. Now the knowledge that in the MEs is secreted with other Anunnaki must be shared. Embarrassed was Enki to share with all the divine formulas of Anu he promised. In the ensuing days, in sky ships traveling, Anu and Antu the other regions surveyed. Then on the 17th day, to Unukai the royal couple returned for one more night of rest. In the morrow, when the younger Anunnaki before Anu and Antu for blessing came, Anu to his granddaughter Inanna took a liking. He drew her closer, he hugged and kissed her. Let all my words heed to the congregated, he announced. This place, after we leave, to Inanna as a dowry is given. Let the sky ship in which we the earth shall survey to Inanna my present be. Joyed, Inanna to dance and sing began. Her praises of Anu as hymns in times to come were chanted. Thereafter, bidding farewells to the Anunnaki for the lands beyond the oceans, Anu and Antu departed. Enlil and Enki, Ninurta and Ishtar with them to the Golden Land went. To impress Anu the king with the golden riches, Ninurta an abode for Anu and Antu built, its stone blocks to perfection cut. With pure gold inside was it covered. A golden enclosure with flowers of carnelian stones carved, the royal couple awaited. By the shore of the great mountain lake was the abode erected. How the gold nuggets are collected, they were shown. There is gold here enough for many shars to come, Anu satisfied said. To a place nearby, Ninurta to Anu and Antu an artificed mound showed. How to a place for melting and refining metals it was made, Ninurta explained. How a new metal from stones was extracted, he showed them. Anak, Anuki made, he called it. How by combining it with abundant copper and strong metal he invented, he showed them. On the great lake from whose shores metals came, Anu and Antu sailed. The lake of Anak Anu called it, henceforth this was its name. Then from lands from the north, lands where great horned beasts are hunted, Marduk before his father Enki and his grandfather Anu came. Nabu his son with him was. When Enki about Sarpana inquired, Marduk with sorrow of her death, he told them. Now Nabu alone with me has remained, to his father and grandfather Marduk said. Anu Marduk to his chest pressed. Enough, you have been punished. With his right hand on Marduk's head, Anu Marduk to be forgiven blessed. From the golden place high in the mountains, all who had gathered to the plain below went. There stretching to the horizon, Ninurta, a new place for the chariots is prepared. Anu and Antu's celestial chariot stood there ready, with gold to the brim it was loaded. As the time for departing came, Anu to his children words of goodbye and guidance said, "Whatever destiny for the earth and earthlings intended, let it be so. If man, not Anunnaki, to inherit the earth is destined, let his destiny help. Give mankind knowledge, up to a measure, secrets of heaven and earth to them teach, laws of justice, righteousness. Teach them, then depart and leave." So did Anu to his children, fatherly instructions given. So it basically to set up this mess we have now and then bail. So did Anu to his children fatherly instructions give. Once more they hugged, embraced, and kissed, and from the new chariot's place, Anu and Antu for Nibiru left. The first to break the sorrowed silence was Marduk. With anger were his words. "What is this new place of celestial chariots?" Of the others an explanation he demanded. "What after my exile, without my knowledge, has transpired?" When Enki of the decisions about the 4 regions to Marduk told, Marduk's fury knew no bounds. "Why will Inanna, a cause for Dumuzi's death, her own region get? The decisions have been made. They cannot be altered." So did Enlil to Marduk say. In separate skyships to the Eden and its adjoining lands they returned. Sensing trouble, Enlil Ishtar to stay behind instructed over the gold watch to keep. To commemorate Anu's visit, a new count of time passage was introduced. By Earth years, not by Nibiru shars, was what on Earth transpired to be counted. In the age of the bowl to Enlil dedicated was the count of Earth years began. When to the Eden the leaders returned, the place of the first civilized region, how to make bricks from mud, the Anunnaki the Earthlings taught. There was cities to build. But where once cities of the Anunnaki alone had stood, cities for both them and Earthlings now arose. Therein, in new cities for the great Anunnakis, sacred precincts were consecrated. Therein, the Anunnaki with lofty abodes were provided, temples by mankind they were called. Therein, the Anunnaki as lofty lords were served and worshipped. By number ranks they were honored, the heirship to mankind made known. Anu, the heavenly, the rank of 60 held. To Enlil, the 50 rank was given. On Ninurta, his foremost son, did Enlil the same rank bestow. Next in succession was the Lord Enki, the rank of 40 he held. To Nanara, the son of Enlil and Ninlil, the rank of 30 was assigned. To his son and successor, Utu, the rank of 20 was allotted. 10 as a number ranked to the other Anunnaki leaders' sons was granted. Ranks by the 5s between the female Anunnaki and spouses were shared. When after Eridu and Nibiru Ki and their temple abodes were completed, in Lagash the Gersu precinct for Ninurta was built. This is where his black skybird was kept. In Inu, House of 50 was the temple abode for Ninurta and Bao, his spouse, called. The supreme hunter and the supreme smiter, weapons a gift of Ainu, the Enunu protected. Where Siparu before the deluge had been, on top of the mud soil Utu, a new Sipar was established. In the Ibabar, the shining house, an abode for Utu and his spouse Aya was raised. From there, Utu for mankind, laws and justice promulgated. Where, because of silt mud, the olden plans could not be followed, new sites were chosen. Adab, a site from Shurabak not distance for Ninharsag as a new center was made. The house of succor and healing knowledge was their temple abode therein named. The emis of how the earthlings were fashioned, Ninharsag and its holy shrine kept. For Nanara, a city with straight streets, canals, and wharves was provided. Urim was its name. House of the Throne's seed was its temple abode called. The moon's beam to the lands it reflected. Ishgar to the mountains in the north returned. The house of 7 storms his abode was called. Inanna in Unagkai resided. In the abode by Anu bequeather, there she dwelt. Marduk and Nabu in Eridu dwelt. In the Eden their own abodes they did not have. Now this is the account of the first city of men and the kingship on earth. and how Marduk to build a tower schemed, and wherefore Inanna the Emmy stole. We're going to stop we're going to stop at the tower, because after Babel we'll get into the rest of it next week, and we'll discuss the Anunnaki grimoire and the Anunnaki prophecies, which actually were a little off as they were dated to happen in 2022, but you can kind of see that it's the setup for it, so maybe they're just delayed. You never know. In the first region, in the lands of Eden and in the cities with precincts, by their Anunnaki lords, the earthlings' handiworks and crafts were taught. Before long were the fields irrigated, on canal and river boats soon sailed, the sheepfolds and granaries were overflowing, prosperity the land filled. Kyengi, land of the lofty watchers, the first region was called. Then to let the black-headed people a city of their own possess, it was decided. Kishi, scepter city it was called. In Kishi did the kingship of man began. So that's down in Sumer. Therein, in consecrated soil, Anu and Enlil, the heavenly bright object, implanted. In it, Ninurta, the first king appointed, mighty mad was his royal title. To make it a center for civilized mankind, Ninurta to Eridu journeyed. The Emmy tablets that for kingship divine formulas hold from Enki to obtain. Properly attired, with respect, Ninurta Eridu entered. For the Emmy of kingship he asked. Enki, the lord who all the Emmy safeguards, 50 Emmy to Ninurta granted. In Kishi were the black-headed people with numbers to calculate taught. Heavenly Nisaba writing them taught. Heavenly Ninkashi beer-making they showed. In Kishi by Ninurta guided, kiln work and smithing proliferated. Wheeled wagons to male asses harnessed, craftily in Kishi were first fashioned. Laws of justice and rightful behavior in Kishi were promulgated. It was in Kishi that people hymns of praise to Ninurta composed. Of his heroic deeds and victories they sang. Of his awe-inspiring black bird they chanted. How in faraway lands the bisons he subdued. How the white metal to mix with copper he found. Ninurta's glorious time it was. With the constellation of the archer he was honored. All the while Inanna of Anakai her lordship in the third region awaited. All the while the domain of her own of the leaders she demanded. The third region after the second one will come, her leaders thus assured her. Having seen how Ninurta to Eridu journeyed, how the Emmy of kingship he obtained, and in her heart a plan devised, to obtain Emmy from Enki she schemed. Her chambermaid Ninshubar to Eridu she dispatched, a visit by Inanna to announce. On this hearing, to Ismid his housemaster quickly instructions gave. The maiden all alone to my city Eridu her step is directing. When all alone she will arrive, my inner chambers let her enter. Pour for her cold water to freshen her heart, barley cakes with butter give her, sweet wine prepare, the beer vessels to the rim fill up. When Inanna alone the abode of Enki entered, Ismid Enki's commands followed. Then when Enki Inanna greeted, by Inanna's beauty he was overwhelmed. With jewelry was Inanna bedecked, by her thin dress her body she revealed. When she bent down, her vulva by Enki was thoroughly admired. From the wine cups sweet wine they drank, for beer drinking a competition they had. Show me the MEs, Inanna to Enki playfully said. Let me ME in my hand hold. 7 times in the course of competition, Enki to Inanna MEs to hold gave. The divine formulas for lordship and kingship, for priesthood and scribeship, for love dressing and for warring MEs to Inanna Enki to hold gave. For music and singing, woodworking and metals and precious stones, 94 MEs that for civilized kingdoms are needed, Enki to Inanna gave. Holding her prizes tightly, Inanna from the slumbering Enki slipped away. To her abode of heaven she rushed out, to soar away her pilot she instructed. When Enki from his slumber by Ismid was awaking, get hold of Inanna to Ismid, he said. When from Ismid that Inanna had already in her boat of heaven departed, Enki heard to chase Inanna in Enki's skyship. Ismid he instructed. You must retrieve all the MEs, he said to him. At the approach to Enki, Ismid Inanna's boat of heaven intercepted. To return to Eridu in the wrath of Enki, face he made her. But when Inanna back to Eridu was brought, the MEs with her were no more. To her chambermaid Ninshabar she gave them, to the house of Anu, and Enki Ninshabar took them. In the name of my power, in the name of my father Anu, I command you the MEs to return. So did Enki angrily to Inanna say. In his abode captive he held her. Alright guys, that looks like pretty much where I gotta leave it now. I wanted to get a little further, but time's ticking away. So we're gonna check out with some another song by me, which is one of my solo works on a new project I'm starting. That's gonna be geared totally towards mantras and your ancient civilizations, spiritual songs, and I'm starting with a set of a few mantras. Now, if you're into meditation, this one, if you put headphones on, get in your position, use the first part of it for your Om, as in say your Oms in harmonic resonance with it. It will tune both sides of your brain and help you to basically focus intention. So like on the second part, you say whatever your favorite mantra or prayer is and focus your attention where it needs to be, and it will work as an amplifier because it's created with pure fire, pure blue creative energy. For those of you that don't get that much to it, still listen with headphones if you can, as it's a binaural song, and I have the links in here to go to my YouTube and stuff like that. Then of course we'll play some of the artists afterwards for King and Queen Radio, and among those I will provide a list at the end. So, and also, as I said, if you're on my socials of any kind, you'll notice in the description there are links to not only the King and Queen and Brooklyn Station websites, but also all our artists. So make sure you download their stuff to support the artists. Other than that, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys listening, and this has been a production put out by BrooklynStation.com and sponsored by BrooklynStation.com. However, BrooklynStation.com does not have any opinions, so this is merely a reading of a book of history that is termed as mythology and a certain translation of it. Do your own research, and we will see you next week for the end of this and discussion of the Book of Ramadash and the Anunnakis esoteric system and some of their prophecies. So that's going to be really kind of intense. So until then, this has been Infinite Sorrow, presented by BrooklynStation.com.
Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Swayambho Om Shiva Shambho Swayambho Om Shiva Shambho Swayambho Om Shiva Shambho Swayambho big vibe. DJ PATMAX'S. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce for me, shawty.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Yeah, I wonder what you are. Shake on for the money. I wanna dance up your body. Why your waist make I spend the rubber? Shawty say make I spend the dollar. If I need a toe shop, and me I'm a toe shop. Somebody, I will take you tsunami. I will take you to Paris. Somebody.
Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce for me, shawty. My mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce for me, shawty.
Ride for me, die for me. You said that you gon' take your time with me. So why all these niggas come spy on me? You say I'm the queen, but you lie to me. Am I yours? Are you mine? Or are we passing time? I don't know. I feel high. You got me on a timeline. Yeah. So call it for me now. Do it once. Baby, give me one dance. Baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah.
Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce for me, shawty. My mind for the money. I take you down to my mommy.
So call that for me now. Do it once. So call that for me now. Do it once. So call that for me. Do it once. So call that for me now. Yeah.
See, whatever is happening between me and you, so you caused it. You did. You caused it.
That's no serious.
You're not the best I know. I'm not the best you know. Yeah, on my own. Whoa. Can I bring the best in you? Yeah, and you bring the best in me too. On my own. Something in my mind, and I know if it take calm off, and I know if it take calm down. No. Yeah. Something in my mind, and I know if it take calm off, and I know if it take calm down. No.
Kelly, oh.
Extol on the beat.
This kind of love, yes, man. Baby, come move for me now. Yeah.
I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you to mama. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you. So where you did? Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not there I want it. So where you did? Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not there I want it.
This where you did. Tell me where you did. I go lap you day. Just tell me where you did. I go give all the girl them backspace. You will enter my queen shipper. You did to stop the boys for Insta. Mona Lista, hasta la vista. Yeah. Say what you want, I go buy for two. Do anything for you. I go carry you, show you what I'm in love. So where you did? Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not day I one day. Anywhere you did. Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not day I one day.
This kind of love, yes, man. Baby, come move for me now. Yeah. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you to mama. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you. So where you did? Tell me where you did.